this presentation before, so it's a bit of an innovation and it's a huge risk. I may fall completely flat on my face and it may be quite interesting. And I may even get inspired by it. Let's see what happens. But a lot of people, not just me, but I'm working a lot with aspects of open innovation which draw on the social and draw on the unexpected actors. Things we call social and inclusive and even frugal innovation I'll be talking about. And I'm doing this because one of the elephants in the room in this discussion is what impact and how are we using this innovation? Someone did mention this morning some of these big societal challenges and the wicked problems, you know, like global warming and unemployment and poverty and migration, dare I say it. And you know what happened 2 or 3 days ago in New York? The global community agreed the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, 17 of them, very complex, but that's a huge achievement, you could argue. And we also have a 2020 Europe strategy addressing some of the similar issues. So how can we maneuver innovation and some of these new actors in an open way to try and meet some of those goals? I better start my timer, actually. Sorry about that. Okay. Innovating innovation, social innovation. This is quite well established by now. This is something which the European Commission is investing quite a lot of money in. It's meeting a social need in new ways, which also collaborates with and empowers the beneficiary, rather than just doing something to somebody, right? You're involving the people who are going to benefit from the innovation. So it's social in its means as well as in its ends. These are some of the definitions which are used. There's also another one related to that, which is called inclusive innovation. Doing social innovation, but aimed at people who are in poverty or vulnerable in some way. People who are unemployed, or people in the third world, for example, who have problems, okay? It's based upon Prahalad's bottom of the pyramid approach. There's massive market value and other value at the bottom of the pyramid, if you know his work. If not, hard luck. Talk to me later. And the other one is, the last one is frugal innovation. It's doing all this, but frugally, using minimal resources, so that the performance-price ratio is dramatically increased, getting affordable excellence. I'll give you some examples of these things shortly. But this, like many of the other issues I'm talking about here, actually arises from the global south. This is an Indian tradition. We don't have a monopoly on innovation in Europe or the West, of course, and you know that. But there's a lot of good stuff coming out of other parts of the world, not just Prahalad, but other people as well. Deriving from the needs of those societies, and the new Sustainable Development Goals actually are universal. They're also for Europe, they're also for North America, they're also for Finland. In Denmark now we have 3 times more poverty than we had 15 years ago, even in a place like Denmark. Give you an example of social innovation from North America. These may sound very simple and glib, but they are innovations in my view. In our backyard, you know the old phrase NIMBY, not in my backyard, don't you dare build that prison here, don't you dare build those pylons here, don't you dare do something here, you're going to disturb me. But in New York and other places as well, they've got this idea, yes, let's do something in our backyard. And this is using IT, very simple, not necessarily innovative IT, to actually galvanize and source ideas, people's time, people's enthusiasm, and of course, finance, to do local projects. If you look down the left-hand side, you'll see that the average the average donation is only $35. And the average distance between the person who donated and where the project takes place is 2 miles. This is local. It's enabled by IT, but it's also doing a lot of other stuff as well, right? This is actually innovating around people's local needs, building parks for children, creating local jobs, cleaning up graffiti, starting a green park or something like that. Lots of interesting things going on there. The social innovation here is grounded at local level. Simple and easy to use ICT, run by the local inhabitants themselves, with some help from academics and other people, of course, meeting pressing local social, economic, physical needs. That is innovation from the bottom, in my view. Inclusive innovation. Let's move to Europe now. This is the example of Mission Leben in Germany, creating and providing real work to people with learning disabilities and mental illnesses, people who wouldn't otherwise be included in the labour market, who'd be put on the shelf and discarded. They have real assets in terms of their time and their enthusiasm and some abilities to do some things. How can we use ICT, and this is more advanced ICT now, to adapt the interface with machines and other and work processes to actually enable them to do good work and actually earn some money? This is an example of a laundry in somewhere in Germany. I can't remember the name of it. The innovation here is creating valuable work for people who are otherwise discarded. ICT is used for personalizing how they work, the interface with the machines and the automation and as part of the work processes. I can't go into details here, obviously, because there's no time. Frugal innovation. I don't know if you've heard of the Narayana cardiac care in India. The biggest cardiac specialist hospitals or networks in the world. They do cardiac surgery for less than $3,000 per operation, compared with in New York City, $50,000. Okay, and the quality is better. How do they do that? How do they do that? They're actually inspired by Walmart's and McDonald's and Starbucks in assembly line, using all the facilities they have. They've got these assets, okay? They've got hospitals, buildings, they've got machinery, they've got equipment, they've got trained staff. They maximise the use of those without exploiting the staff. They've got a 24-hour production run, basically, and they get the cost right down. They're now set up I think in the Cayman Islands to tap the US market. Very good, of course, right? But they're actually what I call frugal innovation. They're dramatically reducing the cost, not reducing the quality, and actually providing healthcare to literally thousands running into millions of people. This is affordable, what we call affordable, sustainable, excellent. This is the excluded population. Most of these people wouldn't be able to afford healthcare otherwise, this sort of heart surgery otherwise. What we call affordable excellence. 3 examples there. Now, how do these link together? One of the links I can see here, and this is where I'm trying to be a bit innovative and thinking out the box. I'm not quite sure my argument stands up here. What we're talking about here was asset squeezing. You know that big companies talk about squeezing your assets to actually make yourself more competitive. What we're doing in all those 3 cases is squeezing the assets. Well, what assets are there in this situation which aren't being used? Let's use them. In the first example, in New York, and it's now at lots of places, there's people's time, people's enthusiasm, little bits of money. They're not being used. How can we bring those together, identify them, bring them together and actually use them to create value? It's asset valuation. And the same goes to all those examples. So one of the perspectives of innovation is, how do we find out what those assets are across society? They're not just in the traditional places, not just in the banks or in the large companies or in the SMEs or in the IT sector. They're in principle everywhere. How do we use those assets and bring them to bear so that we can all have a better life, all innovate based upon them? I'm linking this now to the circular economy. I call it the circular economy and the circular society. The linear economy is about taking, making, consuming and disposing of assets. The circular economy in society is about actually reusing stuff, not wasting assets. If there's something which is so-called waste, we use it somewhere else, in the same factory, in the same system, in the same community, or somewhere else. Okay? This is a new paradigm, as one of the speakers said this morning. So on the supply side, we're moving from 20th century mass consumption and production to 21st century mass personalization. Right? Actually, squeezing the assets. I won't talk about Porter, that's a long story. From abundant to constrained investments and resources. There's been some interesting work done that the quality of innovation, the amount of innovation done across the commercial sector actually remains unchanged despite the business booms and busts. But the quality does change. Those businesses and projects set up during bust periods when resources are constrained, on the whole, do a lot better in the long term than those that aren't. So throwing money at a problem isn't always the answer, right? So we're squeezing our assets in that sense. On the demand side, we've heard some people already mention today about from the ownership, I call it the ownership and exclusive use economy, to use new forms of shared and collaborative consumption. Why the hell should I shouldn't speak like this. Why should I own a lawnmower, which I only use 4 or 5 times a year, or a power drill, which Bosch tells me the average user uses 8 minutes a year? Why should I own that? I don't want to own metal and rubber and plastic. I want the service of drilling a hole or driving a car, right? As someone said this morning. So we are moving on the demand side to exploiting the assets which we have in a new and better way. Okay, and we talked about from consumers to prosumers and co-creators. This has all been discussed. So we're making this circular link, not just in the economy, but in society as a whole. 'Cause innovation is not just about creating monetary wealth. Of course it's that as well. It's also about creating community value, social value, environmental value. Yeah? This is one of the bases of course, the Sustainable Development Goals. It's also embedded in Europe 2020, if you actually take a look. One of our new presidents, I know I have half a minute left, one of the president of the Commission's new policies is actually reversing inequalities in Europe. Have you noticed that? Inequality in Europe is huge these days. Europe has to do something about that. Okay, this is my last 5 seconds. So my conclusion here is unsqueezed and unvalued assets equal to wasted assets. We lose huge amounts of environmental, socio-economic benefits if we do that. So innovation is about, good timing, is about using those assets, recognizing them, finding out what assets are actually. That's a big discussion as well. It's many, many different things. So I hope that little experiment succeeded, more or less. Thank you very much.